Shalom, shalom, Mishpata. We've been having all kinds of technical difficulties this evening with trying to get this recording completed. So I appreciate your bearing with me, but we're going to pick up with part 2. I am reading from the book of Esther, chapter 3, starting at verse 7, and I intend to get through chapter 10 tonight and have this posted for your edification here on Facebook and also on my YouTube channel, Women of the Living Word, for your edification and your enrichment and for the well-being of myself and the body at large. So I thank you for bearing with me. Again, picking up chapter 3, verse 7. In the first month, which is the month of Nisan, in the 12th year of Sovereign Ahasuerus, someone cast pur, that is, the lot, before Haman from day to day and from month to month until it fell on the 12th month, which is the month of Adar. Haman then told Sovereign Ahasuerus, there is a certain people scattered and dispersed among the people in all the provinces of your reign, whose laws are different from all people, and they do not do the sovereign's laws. Therefore it is not in the sovereign's interest to let them remain. If it pleases the sovereign, let a decree be written to destroy them, and let me pay 10,000 talents of silver to bring it to the sovereign's treasuries. He wants to pay 10,000 talents of silver into the hands of those who are going to do the work to bring it into the sovereign's treasuries. So let's back up for a second here. So we see that Haman has put together a plot to destroy the Yahudim because Mordecai, the Yehudi, does not do obeisance to Haman. He won't bow down and worship him, and because Mordecai won't bow down and worship Haman, who has been exalted in the king's court, then Haman, boo Haman, Haman wants to destroy Mordecai and all the people of the culture that he knows are like Mordecai and follow the commands of the Most High, that follow the ways of Mordecai, that are peculiar like Mordecai. So what good are these people? Because they do not follow the order to bow down and do obeisance to me. What good are these people? What ego, what arrogance, right? But so now he has come before the king, and he says to him, not only do I want to get rid of them, but we're going to pay people to do the work of destroying, of slaughtering these people. We're going to pay them 10,000 talents in order for them to destroy the Yehudi. So when I hear this, and I hear that this is coming, this decree came forth in the month of Nisan. Not only is it coming forth in the month of Nisan, which is the month that is the memorial of our release from captivity from Mitzrayim, from Egypt. It is the month that proclaims the year of our release. It is the beginning. It is the head of the year. It is the time when Yahweh makes all things new. And so during this time, someone casts the pur, which is the lot, that falls on the 12th month, which is the month of Adar. That's when the destruction is going to happen. That's when it's decreed to happen. But when that process began, that happened in the month of Nisan. And not only did it happen in the month of Nisan, but it happened on the 12th day. So 2 days before Pesach. So you have a parallel here. You have Haman, boo, over here plotting to destroy the Yehudim 2 days before the memorial of the release of the captives. You have the Yehudi preparing to celebrate their freedom in Yah and their deliverance from bondage and their life in Yah being preserved. So those two things are happening. Okay, so let me continue. I am in chapter 3, verse 9. If it pleases the sovereign, let a decree be written to destroy them, and let me pay 10,000 talents of silver into the hands of those who do the work, to bring it into the sovereign's treasuries. And the sovereign took his signet ring from his hand and gave it to Haman, son of Hammedatha the Agagite, the enemy of the Yahudim. And the sovereign said to Haman, the silver and the people are given to you to do with them as seems good to you. And the sovereign's scribes were called on the 13th day of the month. And the decree was written according to all that Haman commanded, to the viceroys of the sovereign, and to the governors who were over each province, and to the officials of all people, to every province according to its writing, and to every people in their language. So they started this on the 12th. The scribes have come in to record it on the 13th of Nisan. So again, this is the day before Pesach that they are codifying this decree to eliminate, for genocide of the Yehudi. It was written in the name of the sovereign Achashverosh and sealed with the sovereign's signet ring. And the letters were sent by the runners into all the sovereign's provinces to cut off, to slay, and to destroy all the Yahudim, both young and old, little children, women, in one day, on the 13th day of the 12th month. To cut off, to slay, and to destroy all the Yahudim, both young and old, little children and women, in one day, on the 13th day of the 12th month, which is the month of Adar, and to plunder their possessions. So here they are plotting this demise of these people, a whole year in advance. And when I hear that he is willing to pay 10,000 talents for the destruction of the nation, of the genocide of the Yehudi people, I am reminded of the 20 pieces of silver that were offered up for Joseph, the 30 pieces of silver that were offered up for the betrayal of Yahushua. And then we have 10,000 talents of silver for the elimination of the Yehudi, to destroy them from the face of the earth. Verse 15, chapter 3. The runners went out, hastened by the sovereign's command, and the decree was given out in the citadel of Shushan. The sovereign and Haman then sat down to drink, but the city of Shushan was in confusion. Chapter 4. And Mordecai learned of all that had been done, and Mordecai tore his garments, and put on sackcloth and ashes, and went out into the midst of the city, and cried out with a loud and bitter cry. He raised up lamentation to Yahuwah, just like the people under hard bondage and oppression in Mitzrayim, in Egypt, raised up lamentation to Yahuwah, who bottles our tears, who heard the bitter cry of the bondage, of the heaviness of the people when they cried out in Mitzrayim, and then decided enough is enough. Now it's time to deliver them. Not only to deliver them, but to deliver them with a mighty hand and an outstretched arm. And he did that. And he did that in the month of Nisan. And so here we have Mordecai now raising up a lamentation, a loud and bitter cry to Yahuwah. And he went up to the front of the sovereign's gate, for no one might enter into the sovereign's gate wearing sackcloth. And in every province where the sovereign's command and decree came, there was great mourning among the Yahudim, and fasting and weeping and wailing, and many lay in sackcloth and ashes. And I am reminded of the bitter cry of Rachel, who would not be comforted because her children were no more, when she cried out to Yahuwah. And Yahuwah hears our cry now. And so for those who are opposed to us keeping the remembrance of Purim and understanding and evaluating the posture of Hadassah, the posture of Mordecai, I would urge you to reconsider, because it is so necessary and so important for us to take in these themes at such a time as this, as we are preparing our hearts and our minds to enter into the ark with Yahuwah, to close the door and to remember that death has passed over, and to be kodesh unto him, to be set apart unto him, and to be prepared for his return. Because the bridegroom comes. Our King is coming. He's coming for a bride without spot or blemish or wrinkle. He is coming for the one who has her lamp filled with oil, her wick trimmed, and is lit on fire, awaiting his presence. That's who he's coming for. And for those who are slack concerning his promise, those are the ones who will be left out. So let us consider it. Picking up chapter 4, verse 5. And Esther called Hathach, one of the sovereign's eunuchs, whom he had appointed to attend her, and she gave him a command concerning Mordecai, to learn what and why this was. I'm sorry, I believe I skipped a verse. I'm backing up to chapter 4, verse 4. And Esther's young women and eunuchs came and told her, and the sovereigness was deeply pained. And she sent garments to Mordecai to wear, and to take away the sackcloth from him. But he refused. And Esther called Hathach, one of the sovereign's eunuchs, whom he had appointed to attend her, and she gave him a command concerning Mordecai, to learn what and why this was. So Esther's trying to understand, why is Mordecai in sackcloth and ashes? Why is he lamenting? Why is he in mourning clothes before the sovereign's gate and refusing to take the garments that I have sent him, so that he can appear before me, so that he can come inside the gate? And Mordecai told him all that befell him, and all about the silver that Haman promised to pay into the sovereign's treasuries to destroy the Yahudim. And he gave him a copy of the written decree to destroy them. And he gave him a copy of the written decree to destroy them, which he was given at Shushan, to show it to Esther, and to explain it to her, and to command her to go into the sovereign to make supplication to him, and to plead before him for her people. Now this is reminding me of when Yasharallah was out in the wilderness, and they sinned by building the golden calf, and they did revelry before Yahuwah, and Yahuwah was frustrated with them because they continued to sin. They continued to sin after that by complaining about wanting cucumbers and being thirsty and being brought out there to die, and constantly whining about their time in the wilderness, although they were having to basically be held accountable for the revelry that they did at the mountain while they were waiting on Moshe to bring down the Devarim, the word of Yahuwah, the Decalogue, the Ten Commandments. And so at that time, Yahuwah got frustrated, and he said he was going to destroy the people. And Moshe interceded. He interceded on their behalf, and he said, Yahuwah, please don't destroy these people. Do not destroy them for the sake of your own name. Because if you destroy them, then people are going to think that you brought these people out here for the purpose of their destruction, as opposed to the purpose of their deliverance. And Yahuwah relented. He relented from the notion that he would destroy them, and he listened to Moshe's intercession and allowed the people to live, and allowed the children to enter into the promised land, as opposed to the adults. The adults did have to give account, and the adults died out in the wilderness, which is why they've wandered for 40 years. So here we have Mordecai instructing Hadassah, instructing Esther to go into the king, to go into the sovereign, and to intercede on behalf of the Yehudi. I'm going to go and pick up from verse 10. And Esther spoke to Hathach and gave him a command for Mordecai. Verse 9, I'm sorry. And Hathach came and told Esther the words of Mordecai. And Esther spoke to Hathach and gave him a command for Mordecai. All the sovereign servants, and the people of the sovereign's provinces know that any man or woman who goes into the inner court to the sovereign who has not been called, he has but one law to be put to death, except the one to whom the sovereign holds out the golden scepter, who then shall live. But I have not been called to come into the sovereign these 30 days. This is what Esther is saying. And they declared to Mordecai the words of Esther. And Mordecai commanded them to answer Esther, do not think within yourself to escape in the sovereign's palace any more than all the other Yahudim. For if you keep entirely silent at this time, relief and deliverance shall arise for the Yahudim from another place, while you and your father's house will perish. And who knows whether you have come to the reign for such a time as this? Who knows if you have come to the reign, if you have been positioned in this place for such a time as this? These are Mordecai's words to Hadassah. Don't think that you're going to escape because you're sitting up as queen in the palace. Don't think that you're going to escape this decree to destroy the people because of where you are positionally. You need to use your position. You need to play your position. That's what Mordecai is telling her. But he's telling her to play her position in decency and in order. Unlike what happened with Queen Vashti, who was deposed. Chapter 4, verse 15. And Esther commanded to reply to Mordecai, go gather all the Yahudim who are present in Shushan, and fast for me. And do not eat or drink for 3 days, night or day. I too and my young women shall fast in the same way. Then I shall go to the sovereign, which is against the law. And if I shall perish, I shall perish. Mordecai then went away and did according to all that Esther commanded him. So Esther is not taking it lightly that she needs to serve as an intermediary or intercessor on behalf of Yasharal, a type of Yosef, as you will, when he was in Mizraim and he was the instrument of Pharaoh for the mercy that was extended to the nation of Yasharal and the people around during the Great Famine. Hadassah is not taking this lightly. So she tells Mordecai, okay, I hear you. I may be here for such a time as this. So let me do this. Let me go and fast and pray for 3 days and go before the Most High so that he can set me in alignment to go before the earthly king. And you gather the people, and I'm going to gather my women, and we're going to fast 3 days and 3 nights without food or drink. And if I die, I die. But that's how I'm moving. In other words, she is moving with the cloud. Chapter 5. And it came to be on the 3rd day that Esther put on a royal purple apparel. That Esther put on royal purple apparel. Did I just read into that? I did. Let me back up and slow down. And it came to be on the 3rd day that Esther put on royal apparel and stood in the inner court of the sovereign's palace, in front of the sovereign's house, while the sovereign sat on his royal throne in the royal house, opposite the entrance of the house. And it came to be, when the sovereign saw the sovereigness Esther standing in the court, that she found favor in his eyes. And the sovereign held out to Esther the golden scepter which was in his hand. And Esther went near and touched the top of the scepter. And the sovereign said to her, what is it, sovereigness Esther? And what is your request? Up to half of my reign, and it shall be given you. And Esther answered, if it pleases the sovereign, let the sovereign and Haman, boo Haman, come today to the feast which I had prepared for him. And the sovereign said, get Haman at once to do as Esther has said. Then sovereign and Haman went to the feast which Esther had prepared. And sovereign said to Esther at the feast of wine, what is your petition? And it is given to you. And what is your request? Up to half my reign, and it is done. And Esther answered and said, my petition and request is this. You see how Yah has positioned her? Because she came to him first. And then she made her moves. And the king is appreciating her and her moves. And Esther answered and said, my petition and request is this. If I have found favor in the eyes of the sovereign, and if it pleases the sovereign to give my petition and perform my request, then let the sovereign and Haman come to the feast which I make for them, and tomorrow I shall do according to the word of the sovereign. And Haman went out that day rejoicing and with a glad heart. But when Haman saw Mordecai in the sovereign's gate, and he did not stand or tremble before him, he was filled with wrath against Mordecai. He won't relent. Haman is just hell-bent on making Mordecai bow down. And if he won't bow down, then, like the Red Queen, off with his head, right? Okay. And so, verse 9, and Haman went out that day rejoicing and with a glad heart. But when Haman saw Mordecai in the sovereign's gate, and that he did not stand or tremble before him, he was filled with wrath against Mordecai. But Haman himself held himself in, and came to his house, and sent and called for his friends and Zeresh his wife. And Haman recounted to them the esteem of his wealth, and his many sons, and all which the sovereign had promoted him, and how he had exalted him above the officials and the servants of the sovereign. And Haman said, besides Esther the sovereigness, let no one but me come in with the sovereign to the feast which she prepared. And tomorrow too I am invited by her, along with the sovereign. So Haman thinks he's being esteemed because he's in kind of an inner sanctum, as you will, or in the inner space with just the king and queen and no one else. But all this does not suit me as long as I see Mordecai, the Yehudite, sitting at the sovereign's gate. So his wife Zeresh and all his friends said to him, let a stake be made, 50 cubits high, and in the morning speak to the sovereign that Mordecai be impaled on it, and go with the sovereign to the feast rejoicing. And the word pleased Haman, and he had the stake made. He wants to impale Mordecai on the stake. Chapter 6. And on that night, the sleep of the sovereign fled, and he commanded to bring the book of the records of the annals. And they were read before the sovereign, and it was found written that Mordecai had told of Bigthana and Teresh, two of the sovereign's eunuchs, the doorkeepers who had sought to lay hands on the sovereign Ahasuerus, on King Xerxes. Then the sovereign said, what has been done in value or in greatness to Mordecai for this? So the king can't sleep. He calls for the chronicles, the book of records, the Sephers, to be brought out. And so he's reading through them because he can't sleep. And then he realizes that Mordecai has not been honored or esteemed for having saved the sovereign's life by uncovering and exposing the coup to overthrow the reign of King Xerxes. Verse 4. And the sovereign said, who is in the court? Now Haman had come into the outer court of the sovereign's palace to speak to the sovereign, to impale Mordecai on the stake that he had prepared for him. And the sovereign's servant said to him, look, Haman is standing in the court, and the sovereign said, "Let him come in." You see how y'all lines things up? So here comes Haman prepared to bring an evil report, thinking of Balak, before the king on behalf of Mordecai, or in regard to Mordecai. And Yahweh has brought a remembrance of Mordecai prior to Haman bringing this evil report. So no weapon formed against Mordecai can prosper, because Yahweh has brought a remembrance of Mordecai before the king. A remembrance of Mordecai's virtue, of his character, his service to the king. Verse 6. And when Haman came in, and the sovereign asked him, what is to be done for the man whom the sovereign delights to value? Now Haman thought in his heart, because he's arrogant and he's puffed up. So he thought in his heart, who would the sovereign delight to value more than me? And Haman answered the sovereign, for the man whom the sovereign delights to value, let a royal robe be brought, which the sovereign has worn. So he wants one of the king's robes to be brought out, and a horse on which the sovereign has ridden, one with a royal crest placed on his head. This is reminding me of Hillel. This is reminding me of Hasatan, of Lucifer, who was the covering cherub in all his splendor, who was so puffed up because he was bringing the oblations and the praise to the Most High. And he thought to himself that he should be receiving these honors and this praise. And instead of bringing and ushering in the praise to Yah, these praises should be for him, and that he should overthrow the Most High in his sovereignty. And sin was found in him, and he was cast out along with the third of the host of heaven who went along with him. Bear with me 1 second. I'm getting that my frame rate is too low. Is everybody able to keep up with me okay? So Haman is displaying the character not only of Edom, of Amalek, but of Hasatan himself. So let's continue. I hope the frame rate is okay, but I'm going to try not to be distracted with this word, even though we have had so much trial with trying to get it brought out. And if I need to re-record it at a later date, I will. But let's continue. So he wants a robe that the king has worn. He wants a horse with a crest on it that the king has rode. And he wants these delights to be brought to the man that the king is seeking to value. And he says here, let them dress the man whom the sovereign delights to value, and make him ride on horseback through the city square, and proclaim before him, thus it is done to the man whom the sovereign delights to value. And the sovereign said to Haman, hurry, take the robe and the horse as you have spoken, and do so for Mordecai the Yehudite, who sits in the sovereign's gate, and let no word fail of all that you have spoken. And Haman, I know he was mad. Ooh, I know he was mad. He wasn't expecting that. And Haman took the robe and the horse, and robed Mordecai, and led him on horseback through the city square, and proclaimed before him, thus it is done to the man that the sovereign delights to value. Then Mordecai went back to the sovereign's gate, but Haman hurried to his house in mourning and with covered head. And when Haman related to his wife Zeresh and all his friends all that had befallen him, his wise men and his wife Zeresh said to him, if Mordecai, before whom you have begun to fall, is from the seed of the Yehudim, you are not going to prevail against him, but certainly fall before him. That's a woman with some intuition. The sovereign's eunuchs came and hurried to bring Haman to the feast which Esther had prepared. Chapter 7. I am getting another alert about the frame per second being too low. Let me see if I can adjust it. I don't know how to adjust it. I'm sorry. I am learning this technology. I'm going to continue, and we will see how it goes, okay? Chapter 7. And the sovereign and Haman came in to drink with sovereign Esther. And again on the second day at the feast of wine, the sovereign said to Esther, What is your petition, Queen Esther? What is your petition, Queen Esther? What do you want, baby? That's what he's saying. And it is given to you. And what is your request? Up to half my reign, and it is done. And the sovereigness Esther answered and said, If I have found favor in your eyes, O sovereign, O king. And if it pleases the sovereign, let my life be given me at my petition, and my people at my request. For we have been sold, my people and I, to be cut off. We have been sold, just like we were sold and cut off. To be slain. We've been sold, my people and I, to be cut off, to be slain, and to be destroyed. And if we had been sold as male and female slaves, I would have kept silent, although the adversary could not make up for the sovereign's loss. Then Sovereign Ahasuerus said, he asked Sovereigness Esther, Who is he and where is he whose heart is set to do so? Who is it that wants to kill my queen and her people? The king is asked. And Esther said, The adversary and enemy is this evil Haman. Then Haman was afraid before the sovereign and the sovereigness. And the sovereign, arising in his wrath from the feast of wine, went into the palace. He went into the palace garden. He's arising from the feast of wine. And wine is symbolic of the blood. Pay attention. So he goes into the garden. The king arises and goes into the garden. What king went into the garden? He went into the garden. I'm reminding of Yahushua when he went into the garden to pray before he offered himself up. So many themes. Don't miss them. So the king, he goes into the garden. And Haman remained before the queen Esther, pleading for his life, for he saw that evil had been decided against him by the king. And when the king returned from the palace garden to the place of the feast of wine, Haman was fallen on the couch where Esther was. So Haman has fallen on the queen. He has his body on her. What? So when the king comes in from the garden, Haman is on the couch where Esther is. He is fallen on the queen. And the king says, also to ravish the sovereigness while I am in the house. So you're going to ravish, you're going to try to defile my woman, my queen, while I'm here in the house, in my house. You're talking about my enemies, but you want to defile my queen. You have violated my queen in my presence? Some audacity. As the word left the sovereign's mouth, they covered Haman's face. And Harbona, one of the eunuchs, said to the sovereign, also, see the stake, 50 cubits high, which Haman made for Mordecai, who spoke good on behalf of the sovereign, is standing at the house of Haman. And the sovereign said, impale him on it. And they impaled Haman on the stake that he had prepared for Mordecai, and the sovereign's wrath was abated. On that day, Sovereign Ahasuerus gave the queen Esther, the sovereigness Esther, the house of Haman, the adversary of the Yahudim, and Mordecai came before the king, for Esther had explained what he was to her. So now Esther has revealed her identity, and she has revealed her relationship to Mordecai, to the king. And the sovereign took off his signet ring, which he had taken from Haman, and gave it to Mordecai. Humble yourself in the sight of Yahuwah, and he shall establish you. He shall lift you up. So now Mordecai is being established by Yahuwah, and the honors that Haman sought for himself, Yahuwah has turned the king's heart, because he holds the king's heart in his hand, and he turns it which way he will. He has turned the king's heart now to value Mordecai, and Mordecai has been given the possession of Haman's house that was given to Esther. Esther gave it to Mordecai. Backing up verse 2 again. And the sovereign took off his signet ring, which he had taken from Haman, and gave it to Mordecai. So Mordecai also now has Haman's former position. And Esther appointed Mordecai over the house of Haman. And Esther spoke to the sovereign again and fell down at his feet and begged him with tears to put an end to the evil of Haman the Agagite and his plot which he had plotted against the Yahudim. And the sovereign held out the golden scepter towards Esther. She is received again and again and again. And Esther arose and stood before the sovereign and said, if it pleases the sovereign, and if I have found favor in his sight, and the matter is right before the sovereign, and I am pleasing in his eyes, let it be written, to bring back the letters, the plot by Haman, son of Hammedatha the Agagite, which he wrote to destroy the Yahudim, who are in all the sovereign's provinces. For how could I bear to see the evil coming to my people, or how could I bear to see the destruction of my relatives? So she is taking the mantle of intercession, and she is doing all that she was instructed by Mordecai to do in obedience to her head. Her former head, who her father figure, towards her current head, her king. And the sovereign Ahasuerus said to Sovereigness Esther and Mordecai the Yehudite, look, I have given Esther the house of Haman, and they have impaled him on the stake because he laid his hand on the Yahudim. Now you write on behalf of the Yahudim as it pleases you in the sovereign's name, and seal it with the sovereign's signet ring. For a letter which is written in the sovereign's name and sealed with the sovereign's signet ring, no one turns back. So the sovereign scribes were called at that time in the 3rd month, which is the month of Sivan, on the 23rd day, and it was written, according to all that Mordecai commanded, to the Yahudim and to the viceroys and the governors and the princes of the provinces, from India to Cush, 127 provinces, to every province in its own writing, to every people in their own language, and to the Yahudim in their own writing and in their own language. Again, making sure we have clarity of understanding here. And he wrote in the name of the sovereign Ahasuerus and sealed it with the sovereign's signet ring, and sent letters by the runners on horseback, riding on royal horses bred from speedy mares. So they made haste to bring this word of deliverance, that the sovereign has granted to the Yahudim who were in every city to be assembled and to stand for their lives, to cut off, to slay, and to destroy all the power of the people or province that would distress them, little children and women, and to plunder their possessions, On one day in all the provinces of sovereign Ahasuerus, on the 13th day of the 12th month, that's the 13th of Adar, which is the month of Adar, the copy of the writing to be made law in every province was announced to all the people, so that the Yahudim would be ready on that day to be avenged on their enemies. The runners riding on royal horses went out, hastened and pressed on by the sovereign's command. And the decree was given out of the citadel of Shushan. And Mordecai went out from the presence of the sovereign, wearing royal garments of blue and white, with a great crown of gold and a garment of fine linen and purple. And the city of Shushan rejoiced and was glad. For the Yahudim there was light and gladness and joy and value. For the Yahudim there was light and gladness and joy and value. I had to say that twice. And in every province and in every city where the sovereign's command and decree came, the Yahudim had joy and gladness, a feast and a good day, and many of the people and the land were becoming Yahudim, for the fear of the Yahudim had fallen upon them. So again, now they have converts. They have converts just like the nation of Yasharal had converts when they came out of Mitzrayim. Many of the Egyptians saw the battle, and they saw the mighty hand of Yahweh, and it's your Elohim is Elohim, not these gods of wood and stone, but the Elohim, Yahweh El Shaddai, the Most High Yah, is your mighty one. I'm going with you. Just like I think of Rahab when she decided to be converted into the nation. I think of Ruth. So we have, again, converts because of the mightiness, the exploits that Yahweh has done on behalf of the people. And that's his desire. His desire is that none should perish, but that all will come to repentance. So here we are, in chapter 9. And in the 12th month, that is the month of Adar, on the 13th day, when the sovereign's command and his decree came to be done, on that day the enemies of the Yahudim had waited to overpower them. It turned around. It was turned around. So these people have been paid these 10,000 talents of silver. They're waiting to overpower the Yahudim, but Yah said not so. It turned around so that the Yahudim overpowered those who hated them. And the Yahudim assembled in their cities throughout all the provinces of the sovereign Ahasuerus, all 127 provinces, to lay hands on those who sought their evil. And no one stood against them, because fear of them fell upon all people. And all the officials of the provinces, and the viceroys, and the governors, and all those doing the sovereign's work helped the Yahudim, because the fear of Mordecai fell on them. For Mordecai was great in the palace of the sovereign, and his report spread into all the provinces. For this man Mordecai became greater and greater. And the Yahudim smote all their enemies with the stroke of the sword, with slaughter and destruction, and did what they pleased to those who hated them. And in the citadel of Shushan, the Yahudim slew and destroyed 500 men. So in Susa, 500 men were slain. And they slew Parshandatha and Dalphon and Aspatha and Paratha and Adaiah and Aridatha and Parmashata and Arisai and Aridai and Wyazatha. And the 10 sons of Haman. Haman's bloodline is now destroyed. All 10 of his sons. Boom. Gone. And the 10 sons of Haman, the 10 sons of Haman, son of Hamadatha, the enemy of the Yahudim. But they did not lay hand on the plunder. So they didn't want the plunder. They just took out the bloodline. And on that day, the number of those who were slain in the citadel of Shushan came before the sovereign. And the sovereign said to Sovereigness Esther, the Yahudim have slain and destroyed 500 men in the citadel of Shushan and the 10 sons of Haman. What have they done in the rest of the sovereign's provinces? And what is your petition? And it is given to you. And what is your further request? And it is done. And Esther said, if it pleases the sovereign, let it be given to the Yahudim who are in Shushan to do again tomorrow according to today's decree, and let Haman's 10 sons be impaled on the stake. And the sovereign commanded this to be done, and the decree was given in Shushan, and they impaled Haman's 10 sons. And the Yahudim who were in Shushan also assembled on the 14th day of the month of Adar. See the parallels. The parallels with Pesach. Verse 15. And the Yehudim who were in Shushan assembled on the 14th day of the month of Adar, and they slew 300 men at Shushan. But they did not lay a hand on the plunder. Again, they didn't take the spoils, only took out the bloodline. And the rest of the Yehudim in the sovereign's provinces assembled and stood for their lives to get rest from their enemies and to slay 75,000 of their enemies. But they did not lay a hand on the plunder. That was on the 13th day of the month of Adar, and on the 14th day of the month they rested and made it a day of feasting and gladness. But the Yehudim who were at Shushan assembled on the 13th day, as well as on the 14th day, and on the 15th day of the month they rested and made it a day of feasting and gladness. So that's what we do. We get delivered, we rejoice, we give thanks and praise before Yahuwah, because Yahuwah has done what he has done through his Ruach, through his mighty set-apart spirit. We give thanks for those things. We don't take it for granted and just go back to normal. These things are set apart. They're set apart because we acknowledge the miracles from on high. We acknowledge the presence of El Shaddai. Verse 18. But the Yehudim who were at Shushan assembled on the 13th day, and as well as on the 14th day, and on the 15th day of the month they rested and made it a day of feasting and gladness. Therefore the Yehudim of the villages who dwelt in the unwalled towns were making the 14th day of the month of Adar a good day of gladness and feasting, and for sending portions to one another. And Mordecai wrote these matters and sent letters to all the Yehudim who were in all the provinces of the sovereign, Ahasuerus, both near and far, to establish among them to observe the 14th and 15th days of the month of Adar yearly. So this is scripture. It's not just a man-made day. We honor when Yahweh does something miraculous on our behalf. We take time and we acknowledge that. Now, it's not one of the 7 feasts of Yahweh, but it's no different than any other thing that we have in our lives that is of note, that we take time to stop and praise Yahweh for what he has done. Verse 21. To establish among them to observe the 14th and 15th days of the month of Adar yearly, as the days on which the Yehudim had rest from their enemies, as the month which was turned from sorrow to joy for them, and from mourning to a good day, and that they should make them days of feasting and joy, of sending portions to one another and gifts to the poor. And the Yehudim undertook to do as they had begun, and as Mordecai had written to them, because Haman, son of Hammedatha the Agagite, the adversary of all the Yehudim, had plotted against the Yehudim to destroy them and had cast Pur, that is, the lot, to crush them and to destroy them. Big mouth, the head with big mouth. We know that the Pur is pay in the paleopictograph. The pay is the mouth, and the resh is the head, or the first. And Haman had a high and lofty position, so he was a big mouth. He was a mouth of headship that sought to destroy the people of the Most High. And in so trying to destroy them, he destroyed himself and his own family, his own bloodline. That's a lesson. So when you seek out to do ill against someone else, it returns on your own head. That's what happened to Haman. Verse 23, and the Yehudim undertook to do as they had begun, and as Mordecai had written to them, because Haman, son of Hammedatha the Agagite, the adversary of all the Yehudim, had plotted against the Yehudim to destroy them and had cast Pur, that is, the lot, to crush them and to destroy them. But when she came before the sovereign, he commanded by letter that his evil plot, which Haman had plotted against the Yahudim, should return on his own head, and that he and his sons should be impaled on the stake. Therefore they called these days Purim, lots, after the name Pur. Therefore, because of all the words of this letter, what they had seen concerning this matter, and what had come upon them, the Yahudim established and imposed it upon themselves and upon their seed and all who should join them, that without fail they should observe these 2 days every year according to their writing at their appointed time, and that these days should be remembered and observed throughout every generation, every clan, every province, every city, and that these days of Purim should not fail from among the Yahudim, and that the remembrance of them should not cease from their seed. And the sovereigness Esther, the daughter of Abihail, with Mordecai the Yehudite, wrote with all authority to confirm this second letter about Purim. And Mordecai sent letters to all the Yahudim and to the 127 provinces of the reign of Hashverosh, words of peace and truth, words of shalom and amat, to establish these days of Purim at their appointed times, as Mordecai the Yehudite and the sovereigness Esther had established for them. We do obey the laws of the land, don't we? Isn't that part of our understanding from Scripture? And so they established this as law of the land. Just like we obey the laws of this land unless they are in conflict with what we are commanded of Yahweh. So it is good. It is told. It is functional. Again, verse 31. So these words of peace and truth are being established. These days of Purim at their appointed times, as Mordecai the Yehudite and the sovereigness Esther had established for them, and as they had established for themselves and their seed concerning matters of their fastings and lamenting. And the decree of Esther established these matters of Purim, and it was written in the book. And the sovereign Ahasuerus, King Xerxes, laid compulsory labor on the land and the islands of the sea, and all the acts of his power and his might, and the exact account of the greatness of Mordecai, with which the sovereign made him great, are they not written in the book of the annals of the sovereigns of Media and Persia? For Mordecai the Yehudite was second to sovereign Ahasuerus, just like Joseph was second to Pharaoh, just like Daniel was second to Nebuchadnezzar. See these things? For Mordecai the Yehudite was second to sovereign Ahasuerus, and great among the Yahudim, and pleasing to his many brothers, seeking the good of his people and speaking peace to all his seed. Allow Yahuwah. That was a challenging word to bring forth. So much to unpack with that. I'm so grateful to be able to have been able to bring it. And I want to close this out with prayer and just praise Yahuwah for all that he has done with his blood and all that he has done on our behalf, and for the witness of his loving kindness towards us. Thank you, Heavenly Father, for turning your face towards us. I thank you for the witness of your word. I thank you, Abba Yah, for everyone who has been able to listen, for everyone who will hear, that you would open up the hearing and the heart to understand, Abba Yah. And I just praise you and I lift your name on high. Baruch atah Yahuwah Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah amat, nata b'tachenu v'chei olam, nata b'tachenu, excuse me. Baruch atah Yahuwah noten ha-Torah, amen. Thank you, Abba Yah, blessed are you, Yahuwah, for your Torah of truth, for everlasting life in our midst, and for giving us your word of truth. In the name of Yahushua, in the name of Yahushua, our sovereign, our mighty one, Halal Yahuwah, let it be so. Thank you. Shalom.